Temple Run wasn't just a game. It was bigger than Instagram at launch, bigger than Snapchat's first year. 1 billion players, $100 million in revenue, a cultural phenomenon that turned every human with a smartphone into an addict. And then, in less than 5 years, it was completely erased. Not beaten, not replaced, erased. This is the story of how the biggest mobile game in history destroyed itself. And the lesson here will haunt every entrepreneur watching this. Let me be brutally honest with you. If you were alive in 2012 and owned a smartphone, you were addicted to Temple Run. I don't care who you are. Students played it instead of paying attention in class. Office workers risked their jobs playing it in meetings. Your parents played it, your grandparents played it. That random person sitting next to you on the bus? Guaranteed they were swiping, jumping, and running from that demon monkey. The numbers are absolutely insane. Over 1 billion downloads. Not a billion downloads from superfans reinstalling. We're talking 1 billion different human beings deciding this game was worth their time and attention. Players collectively spent over 200,000 years playing Temple Run. To put that in perspective, modern humans have only existed for 300,000 years, and we burned 2/3 of that entire timeline running from a digital demon. The money? $100 million in revenue at its peak. Disney came begging to partner with them. Usain Bolt, literally the fastest human being who has ever lived, became a playable character. This wasn't just a successful game, this was a cultural earthquake. But here's where it gets dark. Today, Temple Run makes about $6,000 per month. $6,000. That's less than a mid-tier YouTuber earns from AdSense. Meanwhile, Subway Surfers, a game that launched just months after Temple Run, now has 4.5 billion downloads and is still printing money a decade later. So what happened? How does a company that creates lightning in a bottle watch it all burn to the ground while their competitor becomes immortal? The answer is going to make you uncomfortable. This story starts with Keith Shepard and Natalia Lukianova, a married couple grinding away at a healthcare software company. Good salaries, stable benefits, and absolutely zero passion for what they were building. Keith had been making games since childhood just for fun, but in 2008 when Apple announced the App Store, something shifted in his brain. This wasn't just a new platform. This was an opportunity to escape the corporate prison and build something that mattered. So, they did what most people are too terrified to do. They quit their jobs, burned the safety net, and launched Amongi Studios. Their first game was a simple word puzzle. First month, $5,000. Not retirement money, but way better than expected. They thought they'd crack the code. They were wrong. They released more word games. Every single one tanked. Then they got ambitious. A 3D racing game called Little Red Sled with gorgeous graphics and smooth gameplay. They planned to launch it for Christmas. Perfect timing, right? Wrong. The project took twice as long as expected. By the time it shipped, Christmas was over and nobody cared. The game bombed. Most people would have quit, given up, crawled back to a corporate job. But Keith and Natalia weren't most people. They analyzed the failure, learned from it, and tried again. In 2009, they launched Harbor Master, a simple boat docking game, and it worked. Over $100,000 in the first year. That's when they realized they could actually win this game. But they also realized something critical. Pretty graphics weren't enough. They needed world-class art. So they hired Kirill Chernyshев, a talented artist. The team grew to 3 people. Together they built Max Adventure, a visually stunning game aimed at kids. Beautiful art, polished animations, and it completely flopped. Why? Because the gameplay was too complicated. Players couldn't figure out how to play. They got frustrated and deleted it within minutes. That failure should have killed Amongi. Instead, it gave them the million-dollar idea. While playing Max Adventure, Keith noticed something fascinating. There was one moment, just one, when the character collected coins, and it felt incredibly satisfying. Swipe, grab, reward. That dopamine hit was perfect, and that's when everything clicked. What if they made an entire game around that feeling? Just running, just collecting, no complex mechanics, no confusing tutorials. Pure, simple, addictive fun. They built a prototype, a character running forward endlessly. Then Kirill suggested setting it inside an ancient temple. Perfect. But why is the character running? They created a backstory. An explorer steals a cursed artifact and must escape. Great. But escape from what? Originally, they planned a rolling boulder, safe, predictable, Indiana Jones. But Kirill pushed for something darker. A demon monkey. A nightmare creature with glowing red eyes and a face designed to trigger primal fear. Natalia hated it. Too scary. Keith wasn't convinced either, but Kirill refused to back down. And after intense debate, the demon monkey stayed. On August 4th, 2011, Temple Run launched for 99 cents. And it worked. Downloads surged, reviews were glowing, the game climbed the charts fast, and then, just weeks later, everything collapsed. Downloads started dropping fast. This is what's called a death spiral in mobile gaming. Lower downloads mean worse rankings. Worse rankings mean even fewer downloads. It's a vicious cycle that kills most games. Keith and Natalia were watching their dream die in real time, so they made a desperate gamble. In December 2011, just 4 months after launch, they made Temple Run completely free and added ads for monetization. It was a Hail Mary, and it didn't just work, it detonated. When Temple Run went free, downloads didn't increase, they exploded. Revenue didn't drop, it quadrupled overnight. Within weeks, Temple Run was the #1 free app on the entire App Store. By August 2012, 1 year after launch, 100 million downloads. Players had collectively logged 32 billion game sessions. 54,000 years of combined human experience spent running from a digital demon. And here's something wild. 60% of Temple Run players were women. This wasn't a hardcore gamer thing. This was a universal addiction. In March 2012, they launched on Android. 1 million downloads in 3 days, 10 million in 3 weeks. Temple Run had gone global. Disney came knocking. In 2012, they partnered to create Temple Run Brave. In 2013, Temple Run Oz. But the real monster dropped in January 2013, Temple Run 2. Better graphics, smoother gameplay, more polish. 50 million downloads in 2 weeks, shattering every App Store record that existed. Eventually, Temple Run 2 would hit 700 million downloads. Then they added Usain Bolt as a playable character. The fastest man alive. In the game, it was genius. Temple Run was unstoppable. The king of mobile gaming, untouchable. And that's exactly when they started destroying themselves. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. Temple Run died because Keith and Natalia fell in love with their own creation and refused to evolve. The game was beautiful in its simplicity, but that simplicity became a prison. Run, turn, jump, die, repeat. That was the entire game. And while Temple Run 2 looked prettier, it was the same exact loop. No meaningful progression, no evolving challenges, just an endless run that literally never ended. Players started getting bored. They wanted more depth, more variety, more reasons to keep coming back. But here's where Keith and Natalia made their fatal mistake. They were so in love with their idea of purity that they ignored what players were begging for. They believed simplicity was sacred. They were terrified that adding complexity would ruin the magic. They were wrong, and they paid the ultimate price. In May 2012, just months after Temple Run's Android launch, 2 Danish developers quietly released Subway Surfers. On the surface, it looked like another endless runner clone. Same concept: run, dodge, collect coins. But Subway Surfers understood something Temple Run didn't. Players don't want simple, they want engaging. They don't want pure, they want personality. Subway Surfers was brighter, faster, more alive. Every character had a unique personality. The music was energetic hip-hop. The visuals exploded with color and joy. And here's the move that changed everything. Subway Surfers updated every single month. New cities, new characters, new themes. Paris, Tokyo, Rio, Cairo. Players always had something fresh waiting for them. Meanwhile, Imangi kept their team at 10 to 12 developers. Keith and Natalia wanted to preserve creativity and intimacy. Noble, romantic, and completely delusional. Because in a market where your competitor is dropping monthly content updates, a 10-person team cannot compete. They couldn't keep up. They refused to scale. And they paid for that decision with their entire empire. By 2018, Subway Surfers became the most downloaded mobile game in the world. And it didn't stop there. By 2022, a full decade after launch, it was still dominating with 4.5 billion total downloads, 20 million daily active users, 150 million monthly active users, and $165 million in lifetime revenue. Temple Run? By 2024, it was making $6,000 per month. Let that sink in. A game that once generated $100 million now makes less than a decent YouTuber earns in a week. That's not a decline. That's not a stumble. That's complete erasure. Imangi tried to adapt. Too little, too late. In 2014, they launched Temple Run VR for Samsung Gear. It flopped. VR wasn't mainstream yet and nobody cared. In 2016, Temple Run Treasure Hunters. In 2021, Temple Run Puzzle Adventure. Fans ignored both. The magic was gone. And here's the part that makes this story even more brutal. It wasn't just Subway Surfers that killed Temple Run. By 2015, the App Store was drowning in endless runner clones. Minion Rush, Sonic Dash, Agent Dash, Running Fred. Hundreds of copycats. Temple Run had pioneered an entire genre, and that genre evolved and left them behind. So what do we learn from this train wreck? First, going free-to-play saved the game but not the company. When Temple Run went free, downloads exploded and revenue quadrupled. That was brilliant, but monetization without retention is just delaying death. Subway Surfers understood retention. Temple Run didn't. Second, staying small killed them. Keith and Natalia wanted a small team to preserve creativity. But in a market where your competitors are shipping monthly updates, a 10-person team is a death sentence. Speed matters. Scale matters. Creativity doesn't matter if you're too slow to compete. Third, simplicity is not a strategy. Temple Run's simplicity made it accessible, but accessible is not the same as replayable. Once the novelty wore off, players needed depth, progression, meaningful unlocks. Imangi refused to adapt. Subway Surfers embraced evolution and won. Fourth, being first means nothing if you stop innovating. Temple Run created the endless runner genre, but they didn't own it. Being first gets you attention. Staying first requires relentless, brutal adaptation. Subway Surfers didn't invent endless runners. They perfected them. And finally, emotion beats mechanics every single time. Temple Run had flawless mechanics. Subway Surfers had personality, color, energy, life. Players didn't just play Subway Surfers, they loved it. People don't remember mechanics. They remember how something made them feel. Temple Run still exists. You can download it right now, but it's a ghost haunting the App Store. The moment has passed. The culture moved on. Today's players want battle royales, competitive shooters, immersive RPGs. The endless runner era is dead. Imangi keeps promising Temple Run 3. No release date, no real plan. And honestly, it won't matter, because this story was never really about Temple Run. It's about every business that captures lightning in a bottle and then watches it all burn because they were too scared to change. Temple Run taught the world that thrill isn't in winning. It's in running just a little bit longer. But here's the irony that will keep me up at night. The game that taught us to keep running stopped running the moment they took the lead. They had the crown. They had the world's attention. And they chose to protect what they had instead of fighting for what came next. Temple Run didn't die because of Subway Surfers. It didn't die because of competition. It died because Keith and Natalia stopped running while everyone else kept sprinting. They chose purity over evolution, simplicity over survival, and they lost everything because of it. In business, standing still is moving backward. And sometimes the scariest thing chasing you isn't the competition. It's your own refusal to evolve. Temple Run had everything, and they threw it away defending an idea that the world had already moved past. So here's my question for you. Where in your life are you making the same mistake? Where are you protecting the old version instead of building the next one? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story punched you in the gut the way it punched me, hit subscribe. We break down business catastrophes like this every week. The rise, the fall, and the brutal lessons hiding inside both. Because the best lessons don't come from success stories. They come from the companies that had it all and burned it to the ground anyway.